And before we continue with today's session, it is very important that we do an acknowledgement of traditional lands. Royal Roads University acknowledges that the campus is located on the traditional lands of the Esquimalt and Songhees ancestors and families. It is with gratitude that we now learn and work here where the past, present, and future of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, faculty, and staff come together. Welcome, everyone. And today's session is Doctor of Business Administration, how to turn a valid research problem into a strong and competitive initial doctoral proposal. And we have the DBA program head, Dr. Hassan Wafai, here with us today as well. Welcome.
Mara, thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's session. The agenda for today, welcome, and Imara did fantastic job welcoming everyone and feeling at home. Then I'm gonna talk a little bit about why DBA and introduce you to current DBA student. And of course, we always encourage you to visit our website to know more about our student, and then dive deep into the proposal, how to build your initial proposal. How to develop it from idea to a solid proposal. And then we will turn off, after this we turn off recording, and we will have an open time for us to chat about your own proposal. So it's a kind of like a two-way workshop. This is what we're trying to do here. So I'm not going to try to be formal. We make it informal. If you have any question, please feel free to stop me, grab a mic, post your question. Imara, please draw my attention if there's any question on the chat. If we all good, we could move on to the next slide, which is why DBA, why Royal Road DBA. So DBA program designed for those who want to lead change in the industry. DBA is the program designed for those who would like to develop original management related research, that advanced management practice and research. Those who would like to be part of Royal Road management researchers, or the community of management researchers at Royal Road, and those who would like to develop leadership capacity beyond organization, to lead within their industry, their sector, being able to reflect on taken for granted assumptions regarding wider social, environmental, and legal issues. As you're considering why, one thing I advise is to think what you will do or what you can do with or without the DBA program. So if you can do things without the DBA program, maybe you need to reconsider your motive around why you want a DBA program. This is a big investment. So it's a time investment, it's a financial investment, and we're going to talk more about that as we move on. Now, one of the key questions I always have, it's a difference between DBA and a master degree, a DBA and MBA, for example. MBA, it's about, you will have skills and competencies to lead within your organization. You could reflect on why most of you did MBA or master degree. You want to advance your career, correct? You want to lead within your organization. But you will do the DBA not just be for organizational purposes, not just for career purposes. It's something beyond you, beyond that. It's to become a subject matter expert, to lead within your industry or field. Another key difference between MBA/master and DBA degree, it's a difference between applying knowledge and producing knowledge. Whereas in a master degree, you will learn knowledge to apply them. You learn theories to apply them. In a doctoral program, you are expected to produce new knowledge, not just learn knowledge. You will produce new knowledge. You will provide new insight, contribution to human knowledge, contribution to literature, contribution to practice. So it's not only about applying existing knowledge, but actually adding to existing knowledge. You will have your own contribution. Does that make sense to everyone? Give me thumb up or thumb down if you wish. That's totally fine. Okay. Let me see here the chat. Okay. Any question? Good. Any question? Any? Okay. Another key question I always receive, it's the difference between PhD, professional doctorate, Royal Road DBA. To clarify, PhD, it's a conventional doctoral program. Professional doctorate, it is very common in Europe, in Australia, and United States. It's DBA, but more of like a professional DBA. And Royal Road DBA, if you recall in the first presentation we did, we used the term hybrid. Royal Road DBA, it's a hybrid degree. It's the way we want to see it, or the way we like to see it, it's a combination of professional doctorate and conventional PhD. That is in terms of program design. So it has a modular component and it has a research component. That is in terms of a program design. So it's not only about two courses, it's not only about research, it's both. In terms of outcome emphasis, it emphasizes applied research. Applied research, that's mean contribution to both theory and practice. Whereas PhD program emphasizes contribution to theory, and a professional doctorate emphasizes contribution to practice only. In terms of employment, and this is a very important point, DBA program prepares graduates to work within and beyond academia. Here's the good and bad news. The bad news is in Canada, 80% of conventional PhD graduates from conventional doctoral program, they don't end up in academic jobs. They don't end up in a full-time academic job, 80%. Only 20% manage to get into academia, while the remaining 80%, they need to go to the industry, to work in the industry. And they are not equipped to work in the industry because conventional PhD program will not prepare them to work in the industry. The DBA program, the Royal Road DBA program, prepares you to work within academia and beyond academia as well. In terms of methodology, it opens up doors for innovative scholarship modes that beyond the gap spotting approach. This is very common in PhD program, where you build your research on gap. You still need to define gap in Royal Road DBA program, but it is a relevant gap, relevant to a real life problem. In terms of knowledge dissemination, Royal Road DBA graduate in this program are expected to be able to communicate their research to both academic and professional community. And finally, in terms of leadership capacity and professional capacity autonomy, Royal Road DBA focuses on leaders as scholar practitioner, whereas PhD focuses on faculty, producing faculty, researcher. And professional doctorate focuses on leaders as practitioners. Royal Road DBA, as we said, it combines both the scholar practitioner focus. Any questions so far? I'm gonna look at chat here. Okay, I don't see question on chat, so I assume that's we're good to move on. Okay, just a quick to remind you about admission requirement, 7 years of professional experience, of which 5 at management level. We require a relevant master degree, MBA. It's relevant certainly, but it's not limited to MBA. It could be any master degree that is relevant to your proposed research. How to apply? There is online application fee, 126.28, very particular number here. And they have a list of supporting, document. I would recommend, if you want to learn more about the process, the documents, please contact Tracy. She will help you. They will provide you more information about the process, application process. Today, I'm going to talk about one of the most important documents that you will submit out of all these documents, which is the initial proposal. That is the most important, I would say one of the most important, if not the most important document that you will submit to us. Okay. So here, Imara added this particular slide, and I'm going to read it. Our enrollment advisors are available. Enrollment advisor Tracy Summers, you can see her here with us. Tracy will provide you with all information that you may need about the process of applying. The details about the documents, what you need, if you have any question around, for example, transcript, whether transcript is acceptable or not acceptable. So she has that experience, and she's very responsive. And if she needs to go into a little bit more detail in any specific, she will contact us. But when it comes to academic content of your proposal, please feel free to reach out directly to us, and specifically to me. If you have any question about the content of the proposal, I am available to help you with the content of the proposal. Again, what does the journey look like? I love this picture. This is a journey, and it is a process of liberating your own thinking process or thought process. You start with really feeling a little bit uncomfortable around, oh, I am still doing, courses. Should I do this? Should not do this? Am I doing it right? Am I in the right place? Do I have the capacity to succeed? And the more you are in your topic, the more you start to realize, well, I'm on the right track. There's a process for that. And normal, and you could read about doctoral process. There's really rich literature around that. Students at the beginning of the journey, they feel lost. And as they move on the journey, they start to find leads that help them to narrow their research. That's in conventional doctoral program. But for us, we will be with you in every step. You will not be left without support from us. So you will be supported in every step. And we talked in the last session around the supporting mechanisms that are available in the Royal Road DBA program, whether from the program management or from the cohort model, or from your instructors, or from the supervisory committee. It's not only one supervisor. There's a committee will support you through the program. Here we'd like to share some of the pictures that we have with our student. This is the first cohort, 2020 cohort. You could see at the bottom of the page, there's 2 links, and these are the link to the cohort bio. So please feel free to visit the cohort website. We feature our students because we are very proud of them. So we have a website specific to feature their research, their progress, their achievement. So feel free to visit and learn about our students. And if you are interested in connecting with any one of them, we're happy to do that. We're happy to connect you with any of our students. For example, if you feel that, let's say Michael in the middle, he's doing research that is similar to what I'm trying to do, feel free to let us know and we will connect you with Michael. Or of course, this is only an example. Here's a picture of our on-campus residency. The first residency will be in February, this February, and we are very excited around that because it will be on campus, back on campus. Very, very excited. And there's another set of pictures. Residencies, as you can see, it's not about one-way communication. It's not about classes where the professor come in a class and give you the wisdom. It's not like this. It's more of a workshop setting where students themselves, colleagues, we call them colleagues, sit together and communicate and engage in learning conversations. Okay, with that, let me dive deep into the proposal piece, the focus of the day. But before going into the proposal, a discussion about the proposal, I just wanted to pause and ask if you have any question that you wish to ask. Imara, did I miss any question?
You have not missed any questions yet.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so research proposal, and I understand that. Okay, yes, I see Tapia. Yes, go ahead, Tapia. You raise your hand. Do you want to grab a mic or?
Hi, sorry about that. I took a bit long raising my hand. My question is just around the size of the cohorts, just to get an idea of how big typically the cohorts are.
The first cohort is 12 students. The second cohort is currently 16 students. We have we will not go beyond that number, maybe 16 plus minus 2. Around that, so could reach to 18 with the starting point, but normally there would be 1 or 2 students who decide to maybe defer or move on. So that is the range of that's the size of cohort, and that is a size carefully decided. It's not too big, it's not too small. The idea is to have enough diversity, so you are part of a community of researchers doing different things. Some colleagues doing qualitative, some colleagues doing quantitative, some of them doing mixed methods, some of them doing ethnography, others do. So you will have different methods. So you are part of a cohort. And the cohort normally at Royal Road, for those who did Royal Road study, it's a safety net. It's a safety net. So you work with them over a couple of years. Tapia, did I answer the question? Tapi. Did I answer the question? Do you have any follow-up question?
You did. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the question and the opportunity for me to explain this point. Thank you. Great. Okay, so you all about writing the proposal, correct? And you start thinking about, okay, what is a research topic I should write about? Now, and you probably also discussed this with other doctoral students who are doing their doctoral research. Okay, I'm gonna turn it off here. Sorry. All right. In a conventional PhD program, you build the proposal based on the advice that you will have from potential supervisor. So the potential supervisor basically will give you the idea, and then you will write a proposal, and then you will submit it. Because admission in a conventional program is based on the supervisor acceptance, whether the supervisor will accept you. Here, we understand that you all professionals and you all have your own experience, and we want to honor that. This is why we said, you don't need to name any supervisor in the first year. Take your time. You write your proposal based on your own on your own passion. And toward the end of the first year, we will work with you to identify the right supervisor for you. So part of the admission requirement is to write the proposal. That's a very important document again. Now, what are the key elements that you need to address in your proposal? First, researchable problem. You need to define a researchable problem. I'm going to put here the pointer. I hope you can see it. So you need to define researchable problem. I'm going to try to see if I can put here we go. Define a researchable problem. Formulate a research question. That's the first element. And normally that's a key element. That's the most important element, because this element will define the rest, correct? And then you will explain the importance of the problem. How the intended research will likely contribute to management practices and research. And you will include key highlights from the literature. Support your argument with some peer-reviewed articles. And the last element, explain how the intended research relate to your career goals and objectives. So 3 key elements I would like to discuss today. Define researchable problem, explain the importance of the proposed problem, and how the research relates to your career goal and objective. Okay. Now I have to remove these. How to define researchable problem? Researchable problem can be defined based on either your own observation and experience or based on literature. The research problem must be management business related problem. So again, it's either based on your observation, your own experience, or based on literature. To explain a little bit more. So someone could tell me, well, you know, I've been working in IT industry for 20, 30 years. And from my experience, I found that most IT projects fail to deliver the promises that of these projects. That is based on your experience. That's based on your observation. That's a problem, and you want to research why, perhaps, why these projects fail, or how to make sure these projects will not fail, or what factors, element that contributed in the failures of IT projects. Or you could, alternatively, that's, I said the first way, it's based on your observation, based on your experience. Alternatively, it will be based on literature, which is actually the most traditional way. When you start thinking about research problem, you will tell me, in the proposal, I mean, well, based on recent literature review or based on that recent particular paper, the author claimed that this particular area, it's under research. So back to our example, you will tell me based on the paper dated 2020, the author argued that IT project implementation, it's under research. and more research it's needed to understand the implementation process. That's an argument. Now, someone will ask, can I only rely on my observation and experience? I would say no. You could start with that, but you still need to support your observation with some literature. Why? You need to ensure that the problem has not been addressed before. If you are going to propose a problem that has been addressed and has been researched before, there's no point of doing your research. So you will address a problem, a research, or you propose a research that addresses a problem that has not been addressed before in literature. And you need to provide evidence to support that. Also, it's important for us to see that you are familiar with some of the literature around your area of research. We just wanted to confirm here, we are not requiring something like overly complicated. Only evidence that you've done a little bit of research around the area that you are interested in. It's not only about your observation and your experience. Also, you need to make sure that you read a little bit about the topic you are interested in to make sure that your research is valid and still needed. Okay. Next slide. Now, you will need to consider the scope of a problem. So it's not too narrow, it's not too broad. So if it's too broad, for example, how to improve management practices in general, that's too broad problem. Yes, it's important how to improve management practices, but like what kind of practices, where, and who said this is a problem? It's too broad to research. So you need to be very specific. But at the same time, you don't need to be too narrow. So you need to consider the scope to be a researchable scope. Try to articulate the problem in a couple of sentences. When you say a couple of sentences, to make sure that the problem is clear for you as well. I always say to my colleagues, my student, try to explain the problem statement in like a couple of statements. That means you are clear about this problem. Of course, people can talk about a researchable problem for hours, but you really need to be able to really write a couple of sentences that capture the essence of the problem. And once you are clear about the research problem, you will need to develop a research question. You don't need to be very, I would say, accurate at this point in terms of research question. Give it a try. A question that captures the problem. For example, if there is a problem in IT implementation, in the implementation of IT projects, so the question could be, what are the factors that contribute to the failures of IT projects in service industry? So very specific here. I'm looking for factors that contribute to the failure of IT projects in service industry. That's very specific. Or I could say, instead of what factors, I could come up with a different question. How can we improve IT implementation process? Of course, at this point, as I said, it is okay to not be very accurate in terms of the question, because you will have time to learn about these different kinds of questions, the different kind of what's. For example, there's what explanatory and what exploratory. So you will learn all that in the program. But at this point, we just need a piece of evidence that you have put some thought around the research question that you are interested in. So to recap, identify researchable problem. The problem can be based on your observation experience or can be based on literature. Either or, you still need to support the research problem with evidence from existing literature to make sure that the problem is still valid and is still under research. You need to consider the scope of the problem. It's not too narrow, it's not too broad. And you need to be able to articulate the problem in a couple of sentences. That's what we call problem statement. And develop a research question that capture the research problem. That's the first and the most important element of your proposal. Any question about that very important element so far? Any question, ladies and gentlemen?
I don't see any questions in the chat, but I will keep monitoring it.
Okay.
If anybody has any questions, pop them in there. Oh, it looks like we have one that just came in.
There you go. Great, Matt. Thank you very much for data access. I would say yes, you will need to consider data access, but would say it's a consideration because you're not yet clear about the details of your research. So at this point, you define a problem in general. And in the first year of your program, you will dig deep into the literature around the problem. And perhaps you will focus on a specific aspect of the problem for which you will then need to collect specific data, i.e., whatever data you think it is required at the beginning of your program may not be required once you develop the proposal a little bit further in the first year. So it's good to consider some, data accessibility to the data in general. It's very good, especially if you're doing something like very sensitive research. For example, you're doing, you are assessing government practices. So you may want to consider there is some access, or you have access to data, to government data in specific area that you are interested in. Ideal length of a, but before I go to the ideal length, Matt, does that answer the question? Kind of? Give me like an indicator. Okay, Matt, let me know if you have any follow-up question. Thank you. Yes, thank you. I have another question. Ideal length of a proposal at this point for the admission requirement, we need 2 to 5 pages only. So it's not a complicated proposal, it's just initial proposal. We need to have a valid research problem. That's a key, important piece. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the rest later on, but it's a 2 to 5 page. Now, some colleagues think that, oh, you know what, if it is like 20 pages, that will be better. No, at this point, be precise and concise. That is less problematic. Let me put it in this way, less problematic, because once you start the program, you will learn that, you know what, this is the right way to write about that particular aspect. So you don't go into too much details. But the research problem, that's the most important things. Think about a research question that captures the problem. It will be nice. It will be plus if you put some objectives, research objectives, but that's okay. I mean, we understand that's too early, but that's still fine. The research problem, that what we are looking for. Great. Thank you. Did I answer the question, Cecily? Okay, Tapi, yeah, thank you. What is a preferred referencing style? Thank you. at Royal Road, you know, it's very common, not just at Royal Road, almost all Canadian universities use ABA. But we understand that if you're not familiar with ABA, if you're familiar with other referencing style, it's still okay. Once you start the program, you will learn more about ABA style, which is something very simple. But whatever style you are familiar with, please use. Again, if you can use ABA, that will be great. But if you cannot, that's still fine. You use the style you are familiar with. Very important. You must reference any information you use to support your argument. You must. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. Thank you, Tapi, for the question. Okay, so define researchable problem. We said this is a key and most important element. Now, let me move to the next element. It's discussing the importance of the problem. It's not just writing a research problem. You need to discuss the importance of the problem. And why you need to explain to the readers, to adjudicators, reviewers, who will look at your file, why the problem is important. It's very good to tell us it's based on your observation, based on your experience, but as I noted, that's not enough. You still need to tell reviewers and readers how this problem is situated within existing literature, whether the problem is under-researched. There's not enough research to address the proposed problem. Or was it addressed before and you're trying to focus on now a different aspect of the problem? Or maybe a different, you are using a different perspective to look at the same problem or providing a new insight about the problem? You will explain the consequences of the problem or solving it actually, in relation to the entire industry or sector, society, community, national, and the global economy, and finally, management practices. So let me get back to the example I used at the beginning, the problem of the implementation of IT projects. Well, I would say there's certainly some of you have been through IT project implementation and they have experience to write about, but also you still need to write what is the literature. You need to tell the readers that 75%, for example, in literature, you will find that in the literature, 75% of IT projects has failed or have failed to deliver the promises of these projects. And they are rich literature about the reasons behind the failures of IT projects. And you need to explain then what aspect you are trying to research here. Is it that you're looking at it from a surface, in the surface industry? You're looking at the context of this project. You're looking at the size, right size of this project. You're looking at the relationship between, let's say, the success and team composition, the team who implement the project. There are so many aspects you look at. You explain, and you explain your potential outcomes, that the outcome of your research will contribute to literature because there's gap in this specific area. And by solving this, will have consequences, and we will improve the practice of implementing IT projects. You will improve management practice and management research at the same time. So again, discuss the importance of your research. Very, very important and key element. And you will include, again, key highlights from literature. So your proposal should be evidence-based. It's not just based on your experience. I know I'm repeating this, but just wanted to make sure that this information is really, delivered to you. So you need to include key highlights. We're not expecting a full literature review. We're expecting key highlights from literature. There's a difference between complete literature review and key highlights from literature. Complete literature review is something you will do during your study, where you will read all the literature available that's relevant to your research problem. You will be clear about all researchers, all aspects has been done in relation to your research. That's called complete literature review. Key highlights, you bring key papers that could support your argument. I personally suggest that you start with paper that's called systematic literature review. Systematic literature review provides you with a very broad view about specific body of knowledge, and also helps you to narrow down the focus of your research, as these kind of papers provide guidelines for future research in the area of these reviews. So I recommend to include systematic literature review in your proposal. So reviewers will need to see that you have done some work, that you have researched your problem, I mean the proposed problem, and you have included some papers in your proposal. Now, one thing that often encounter, colleagues come and ask me, how can we access papers? We don't have access to journal articles. We don't have access to peer-reviewed articles. I always recommend that you start with Google search. Google search, and do the Google Scholar search, Google Scholarly search. That will help you to identify some relevant research paper relevant to your area of expertise. At the beginning, I would say you read an abstract because you may not be able to have access to the full paper. But once you define a number of papers that are very much relevant to your area of research, I would say you go to a nearby library, a university library in your neighborhood, in your city, and you can go and download this paper from this library. Most of the libraries provide access to public to use their resources for a few hours or one day or so on. Okay, so part of the also proposal, it would be nice to talk a little bit about the research design. How are you planning to address the problem? What kind of methodology you planning, you imagining yourself be doing? Don't worry, you don't need to be detailed. You don't need to provide a lot of detail. This is something you will do later on. You will explain much more details later on. We understand you still need to learn more about research design, different methods, different methodologies. And this is a complicated topic. In the first year of your program, you will have courses, specific 3 courses about research design. And you will spend after that 6 months getting into the design elements. So we understand that might be a little bit too complicated. We only need to have evidence that you put some efforts thinking about research design in general. And here, sources of data, potential sources of data. Again, in general, you don't need to go deep. You don't need to worry a lot at this point, because your proposal will evolve once you are in the program. And of course, the research design will evolve with your proposal. Here we go. So some examples. Here I'm putting some example from existing student, DBA student, current DBA student. Nathan Banda. Nathan has a MSN He doesn't have MBA, but he has MSN. He has 15 years of experience in healthcare. He's currently at a management level, managing a nursing unit since 2016 in Alberta. Nathan noticed, based on his experience, that there is a perpetual nursing retention challenges in rural area in Canada. And he talks about this, I mean, passionately, because he's experiencing it. He has difficulty retaining his own staff. In 2018, he provided an example, 40% of registered nurses, they left to Calgary. And that's over 2 months only. This is it's a huge problem. You lose 40% of your own staff. And when Nathan went to literature to understand why and how he could keep his own staff, he found that there is a very little literature around this particular problem. So based on that, Nathan described the problem, which is a very valid problem, from a practice point of view, and also very valid problem from a literature point of view. There's no literature around this. There's a gap in literature, and this problem, it is also valid from a practice and has not been addressed yet. This is a valid problem. And based on this problem, Nathan developed the research question, which is, of course, the initial research question. I think now the question evolved. But the initial research question was, what are the factors affecting nursing retention in rural areas in Canada? That was one of the successful proposals in 2022 cohort. Another colleague, Jason Major. Jason in 2021 cohort right now, and he is right now doing the 717 course, which is the self-directed study course. Jason has a master in art and security, defense, and management and policy. He is a colonel from Royal Canadian Air Force and has 30 years of experience as a pilot. Recently, actually, Jason I came to know just recently, like a few weeks ago, he accepted a leadership position in the government as well. So Nathan, again, from his own experience in his industry, Jason argued that COVID-19 pandemic has caused significant shock and period of uncertainty to the aviation industry in Canada. We all noticed that. So when he made his case, he provided evidence what happened with Air Canada. They lost most of their employees. Without the fund that they received from government, they will be out of business. He also talked about WestJet, what happened with them. And he argued there are thousands of Canadians who lost their job in the aviation industry. And the aviation industry is not only airlines, airports, it's like a complete supply chain. This is a valid problem. There's enough evidence to support the problem. Now, based on this problem, Jason proposed the following research question. How can COVID-19 lessons learned, best practices, and resilience be used to help Canadian aviation management improve their systems and business models, enabling them to be more resilient going forward? That was the initial research question that Jason proposed. Of course, now we work with Jason to develop this question a bit further and be a little bit more focused. And of course, that's based on a thorough review of the literature and existing practices around organizational resilience and supply chain resilience. Third example, Tasha Brooks. Now, Tasha, she is a colleague. Tasha, she is a professor in Vancouver Island University here on the island. She has, you can see, MBA and MSCIP in International Business, Indigenous Education Navigator at Vancouver Island University, Director for Caucasian Tribes Fishing Enterprise, a fantastic colleague. Tasha argues that Canadian Indigenous entrepreneurship participation rate is only 6.26%. And that is low compared to non-Indigenous participation rate of 11.75. And that's based on Statistic Canada 2016. But that's an interesting problem. Now, when you read this, well, this seems like a problematic. Why? Someone will ask why. Someone will ask what. Someone will ask, how we can improve. So there's different way to capture this problem. So Tasha developed the question in the way of why, despite increasing entrepreneurial support, services available for Indigenous entrepreneurs in Canada, a lower number of the Indigenous people engage in entrepreneurship. So it's about why. It's a valid research question. It's under research. There's a gap in literature, and it's important for to practices. You could argue that the outcome of this research will really impact the policy, the entrepreneurial support available for Indigenous entrepreneurs in Canada, and how to engage them in such programs. Now, advices as you are selecting your research problem. Research your passion. Passion research often results in thoughtful and rigorous research. Passion is very important. And I always have that question is, what do you think the right research problem? Is that this problem or that problem? I always say, it's not me who will decide, it's you who will decide. Research your passion. The problem that you will propose should align with your passion. That's going to be your professional identity. Well, I did my PhD in technology transfer. I still feel, I still believe this is where I'm passionate about. This is my professional identity. When I introduce myself as an expert in that field. And the same you will be doing once you choose a certain topic. So research your passion. DBA programs allows you to align your passion with your research. Conventional PhD program, you can't do this. You will need to do a research that's aligned with your supervisor's passion. But in a DBA program, we say, you don't need to name a supervisor at the beginning. Research your passion, choose a topic, and we're going to help you develop, advance this topic. Know your motivation. Why DBA? What are you going to do with the DBA that you could not do without it? What are you going to do with the DBA that you cannot do without it? This is a long journey. It's a 4-year. It could be 5, 6. It took me 6 years myself to complete my PhD. So it's not a 1-year program. It's quite a long journey. I always say it's not sprint, it's a marathon. So think about your motivation before you make the decision. And here I'm talking with you as academic, as colleagues, to give you the best advice, of course. Identify your competitive advantage in terms of research. Identify these kind of research that you are the only person that can do it. Nathan Panda, who's doing research to investigate how to retain nurses, he has competitive advantage. He is a person working in as a head of nursing unit in Alberta. He's dealing with a problem. He's the right person to do this. I can't do that. I don't have that competitive advantage. He does have a competitive advantage. I mean, Tasha, she is an Indigenous educator. She is an Indigenous person. She is dealing with this problem. She's living the problem. She has access to data. She understands the problem. She has advantage over any other researcher who wish to investigate that particular problem. Research your, identify your competitive advantage. Finally, a couple of general things to consider about your proposal, about writing, building your proposal, the structure of proposal. There is no standard for the structure of the proposal. It's 2 to 5 pages. I mean, when I say no standard, there's no, we are not proposing standard and we're asking you to follow that particular standard. Use your own logic. But generally speaking, we want to see the research problem. We want to see it clear and loud. We don't need to, for readers do not need to search where's the research problem. I will put the research problem at the beginning. Something like the introduction. This proposal deals with and then explain the problem. So I will put the problem at the beginning to introduce readers to the problem. I always recommend personally to have an introduction section. Introduce readers to the structure of your proposal. It's a 5-page. I wouldn't expect that 5-page will go without subheadings. There will be subheadings. So introduction section will be nice to introduce readers to the structure of your proposal and the problem that you are proposing. Length of proposal 2 to 5 pages, as we said. 2, I mean, I wouldn't recommend going beyond 5. I mean, if you want to increase it a little bit, that's okay. But I wouldn't recommend to provide more information that is required, more than it's required. 2 to 5 pages is just like a sweet spot. Citation and references, as we said, ABA, it is the norm that we use at Royal Road. If you are not familiar with ABA, use the norm that you are familiar with. It's important, it's critical, it's very critical that you reference any information that you will use. A proposal that we find there is plagiarism in it, it's a straightforward, I mean, deny. So your file will be denied automatically. So it's very important to cite and reference the information you will use. Your argument, you should be the author of your argument. You could use, again, papers to support your argument, but you should be the author of your argument. Clarity and readability, this is another important aspect. Make sure that you spend time editing your report, your proposal. Ask a colleague to read it for you, to give opinion. The proposal normally is a sample of your own writing. So I would say it's very important that you spend time, make sure the writing is clear, there's no error, the argument is well structured, headings are correct, the overall look of the report or the proposal is also at the doctoral level. It's only 5 pages, so it shouldn't be overly stressful. Okay, any questions so far? This is my last slide before we go to a Q&A and like an exercise, kind of an exercise that we have here, which called think and share. So in this exercise, I will ask you to think about the research problem that you are about to write about in your proposal, and write it down on a piece of paper and share it with everyone. And let's have a conversation around the proposed problem that you are interested in. Okay, and I'm happy to provide input and feedback to you as you share your problem or the intended problem. But before we go to that exercise, do you have any question? Look at the chat here. Any question that I'm missing in chat? I see Matt. There's a comment from Matt. Okay, I'm going to read the comment here. I'm not going to read it loud. My fear is that okay, Matt. Okay, this is a very important question from Matt, and allow me here to read it. I'm not gonna read it. It's on the chat perhaps. But Matt basically asking about, do I need to consult with the company as I'm developing the research proposal? I would say it depends, Matt. Ideally, you will develop a proposal that's a valid, that is relevant to a particular practice or particular issue in the industry, ideally. And that's what we are looking at here. Now, if you are interested in getting grant, for example, and you are looking for a partner organization to work with you to get grant, then maybe perhaps it's worth consulting with a company, a specific or a number of company or a specific company to get their approval before you move on. But I would say at this stage, maybe it's a little bit overthinking to get direction from companies as you developing the initial proposal. I would say it's a little bit too early, because the proposal itself will evolve and you don't know everything yet. So as you're going through the program, you have time to dig deep into the literature, develop a valid problem. From a literature point of view, then you could really be able to consult to have a better ground, more solid ground to discuss your research proposal with company. Matt, did I answer the question, kind of? Okay, give Matt some time to think about the answer, and let me go to Candice here, asking, can you speak to the support given if your research problem may be outside the expertise of the research supervisor committee? Thank you very much. That's important question. There are different phases of the DBA program. The first phase is a course-based. And during course-based, you would not necessarily have a supervisor because you don't need a supervisor. You will do courses. These courses will prepare you to do research. These are, literature courses, research design courses. Toward the end of the first year, we will work together on identifying the right committee to support you. Now, the right committee, this is a big word, right committee. Right committee is not only about professional orientation. It's also about, the fit. People, you can work with and they can work with you. We first start with faculties faculty member within Royal Road. If we couldn't find someone that, or a group that will really fit, we ensure there's a fit, we together, of course, we start looking for a faculty member who are outside the Royal Road in other universities. And that is one of the, I think, one of the key strength of Royal Road DBA program, that we allow students to have external supervisor outside Royal Road community. Of course, there are certain criteria that we need to ensure before we accept an external supervisor, and there's a process for that. It's not just like, okay, let's have a supervisor from outside. This will be communication. We communicate with that supervisor. We get his or her CV, making sure that he has a valid research, has an academic appointment in his post-secondary institution that's valid, that's recognized, and then we will work with you to make sure that you understand all the consequences, and for that supervisor also to understand the nature of the program and the nature of relationship, because most of supervisors outside Royal Road, they have a, I would say, conventional experience in the way the relationship between student and supervisor. At Royal Road, this relationship, it's more collegial, built on respect. We understand that our students are adult students, they have their own experience, and we need to really take care of that. It's not a conventional PhD program where PhD student coming fresh from master degree, a young researchers. It's different. So we make sure all these elements are really considered, and then yes, we could accept external supervisor. And you could see from our existing group, almost like, I'm going to give a rough number, 30% of our students have external supervisor. When I say external, I mean external to Royal Road. And there are several reasons for that. Not because necessarily we don't have that expertise. Maybe we, in some case, a student really would like to work with a certain individual faculty member in a specific university who perhaps was his master supervisor, supervisor, thesis supervisor. That's okay. Or maybe there is this very unique expertise in a specific university that is very good for the student to be in his or her committee. So that's a long answer for your question. The short answer, we can accept internal supervisor and external supervisor. Candice, did I answer the question? Am I pronouncing the name right, Candice? Okay, I see Imara say yes, Hassan, yes. Okay, good, thank you. Thank you. Matt, thank you very much. Okay, Matt put a comment, a follow-up comment here. Yes, this is good, and thank you. Have you had any challenge in attracting companies to participate in your research? That's a question that can be addressed to our students, because students are responsible for attracting companies to participating in their own research. I would say it depends on the participation. So if you are attracting company to participate in your research and pay money, that certainly will be more challenging than getting company to provide you with data. So I would say all doctoral students will need to think about the kind of data they may need to address the specific question they have. This data might come from companies, might come from individuals, depends on the research questions. But if you are interested in attracting companies to support you, I would say it's not very challenging, but of course it requires work. It requires work identifying these companies and working with them, orienting them. That is not very uncommon. It is very common for doctoral student, to do that. So the answer is, I wouldn't call it challenges. It depends, of course, on your research question and the kind of participation. But I think I have a lot of success stories, to share. Thank you, Matt. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if we are good, we have still 40 minutes, less than 40 minutes, maybe. So let's take 3-4 minutes to think about the research problem.